There's a quiet assumption many of us carry into our 60s, 70s, and beyond that, the foods we've loved for decades are still serving our bodies as well as they always did. Among them, cheese sits comfortably in our fridges and on our plates, bringing flavor, nostalgia, and a sense of comfort. But what if I told you that the very cheeses we think are harmless or even healthy might be silently sabotaging our bones, brains, and blood vessels? Welcome to Senior Health Hub, where we reveal the truth behind the foods we trust and the habits we repeat with your long-term wellness in mind. In today's in-depth episode, we're uncovering the cheese crisis. After 60, a subject often overlooked but critically important for anyone navigating the aging process with clarity and strength. This isn't just about cutting back on indulgence. It's about understanding how specific compounds in cheese interact with your changing physiology. It's about learning why your digestion feels different now than it did 20 years ago. It's about asking, is the cheese I love actually harming my heart? Could it be triggering fatigue, memory fog, or high blood pressure? If that sounds dramatic, you're not alone. Most people over 60 were never told to rethink their relationship with cheese. After all, it's been touted for its calcium and protein. But the truth is, not all cheeses are created equal, and some may be actively undermining your health. Take former President Bill Clinton. After his cardiac surgeries, he made the bold choice to eliminate nearly all saturated fats, including dairy. His transformation wasn't just political, it was physiological. His decision brought national attention to how food choices shape longevity. We're going to explore the subtle but serious dangers hiding in your cheese drawer. From processed spreads packed with trans fats and kidney-straining phosphates, to mold-ripened varieties that elevate blood pressure and threaten immune defenses, the wrong cheese can accelerate the very conditions aging bodies are trying to resist. But we're not just here to warn, we're here to empower, because there is also good news cheeses that actually enhance senior health. You'll discover why goat cheese, Swiss, and feta deserve a spot in your kitchen. These aren't trends. These are time-tested, gut-friendly, brain-supporting, bone-nourishing options that work with your biology, not against it. We'll also share patient stories, real transformations from everyday seniors who swapped the wrong cheeses for the right ones, and in doing so, lowered their cholesterol, improved cognition, and felt more vibrant in their daily lives. So whether you've been eating cheese for comfort, tradition, or nutrition, it's time to take a closer look. Not through fear, but through respect for your body, your future, and the power of informed choices. Stay with us through this full journey, because after this episode, you'll never look at a slice of cheese the same way again, and that might just add years of vitality to your life. For much of our lives, dairy, particularly cheese, has been viewed through a single familiar lens. It's good for your bones, high in protein, and a reliable source of calcium. These ideas were reinforced by decades of food marketing, school nutrition programs, and even public health guidelines. However, after the age of 60, that same cheese you once enjoyed with zero concern might now be working against you rather than for you. Aging changes everything. As the human body matures, it undergoes metabolic, immunological, and digestive shifts that impact how we process food, especially complex dairy products. What we digest easily in our 20s or 30s can become a physiological burden by our 60s and 70s. One of the most significant changes is in enzyme production. Specifically, the enzyme lactase, which is responsible for breaking down lactose, the sugar found in milk, dramatically decreases in many people as they age. This isn't just anecdotal. Studies have shown that nearly 65% of the global population experiences some form of lactose intolerance. In older adults, this intolerance can manifest not only as bloating or cramping, but also as chronic inflammation, joint pain, or persistent fatigue. Beyond enzyme decline, the gut microbiome collection of bacteria in our intestines that influences everything from digestion to mood also changes with age. A less diverse microbiome means a greater risk for leaky gut, poor nutrient absorption, and systemic inflammation. Unfortunately, many commercially produced cheeses are ultra-processed and devoid of probiotics, meaning they do little to support gut health and may even worsen it. This is particularly problematic because inflammation is no longer a vague health buzzword. It's the underlying driver of most chronic illnesses that plague seniors, including heart disease, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and osteoporosis. Consuming cheeses that are high in sodium, saturated fats, and devoid of natural cultures can quietly escalate this inflammation. Let's talk about the connection between cheese, medication, and organ function. Seniors are often prescribed medications for high blood pressure, cholesterol, kidney disease, or osteoporosis. These medications can influence how nutrients are metabolized or excreted. For instance, certain blood pressure medications can increase potassium retention, which complicates the high sodium content in many cheeses. Others, like diuretics, can dehydrate the body and strain the kidneys, making the phosphorus and sodium content in cheese particularly dangerous. For older adults with compromised kidney function diagnosed or undiagnosed, the high levels of inorganic phosphate found in processed cheese products may accelerate kidney damage. Phosphate additives are readily absorbed and significantly contribute to vascular calcification and arterial stiffening, both of which increase cardiovascular risk. Let's not forget bone health, the main reason many seniors continue to include dairy in their diets. But here's a reality check. Not all dairy improves bone density. In fact, certain cheeses high in sodium may leach calcium from bones, especially in individuals with acid-imbalanced diets. More effective alternatives for bone health include fermented dairy with active cultures, low sodium, and high vitamin K2 content, which is found in aged cheeses like Swiss. We can also learn from high-profile examples. President Bill Clinton is one such case. After undergoing quadruple bypass surgery, he made a drastic change to his diet by adopting a largely plant-based regimen, minimizing or eliminating most forms of dairy. Though cheese wasn't singled out, his dramatic cardiovascular recovery highlighted the role that saturated fat, commonly found in full-fat cheeses, plays in arterial disease. Other celebrities have echoed similar transformations. Media mogul Oprah Winfrey, for example, has spoken publicly about adjusting her diet in midlife to improve metabolic health. Though she didn't abandon cheese entirely, she shifted toward lower fat and plant-based alternatives to manage weight and inflammation. Her example illustrates a broader awareness that the way we eat at 60 should differ from the way we ate at 30. Let's take a look at the immune system, which also undergoes significant age-related decline, a phenomenon known as immunosenescence. This reduced immune response makes seniors more vulnerable to bacterial pathogens like Listeria monocytogenes, which can contaminate soft cheeses made from unpasteurized milk. While healthy adults might tolerate low levels of this bacterium, older adults are far more susceptible to severe outcomes like sepsis or meningitis. Additionally, cheese as a source of saturated fat needs more scrutiny. The U.S. dietary guidelines for Americans recommend that saturated fat intake remain below 10% of daily calories. Yet, just one serving of full-fat cheese can deliver up to 6 grams of saturated fat, nearly 1/3 of a senior's daily allowance. Chronic overconsumption increases LDL cholesterol, contributing to atherosclerosis and increased risk for strokes. So, is cheese inherently bad? No, but the details matter. The type, source, and portion size make all the difference. Unaged, processed cheese products are high in additives, sodium, and phosphates. Meanwhile, traditionally made, naturally fermented cheeses like goat cheese, Swiss, and feta are lower in lactose, rich in bioavailable minerals, and may even support gut health due to their probiotic content. Let's consider longevity zones, such as the blue zones, Okinawa, Sardinia, Ikaria, Loma Linda, Nicoya. These populations consistently demonstrate high life expectancy, and interestingly, many of them do include cheese in their diets, but not the types typically found in Western fast food culture. In Ikaria, Greece, for example, small amounts of goat cheese and feta are consumed regularly. The key here is moderation, quality, and the absence of additives. Another often overlooked factor is portion control. In the United States, a serving of cheese can often exceed 2-3 ounces, especially in fast food or restaurant meals. In contrast, Mediterranean seniors typically consume just 1 ounce at a time, enough to flavor a dish, not dominate it. This is where education becomes vital. Many seniors simply aren't aware of how much cheese they're consuming or what's in it. Ingredients like sodium phosphate, artificial colorings, emulsifiers, and hidden sugars don't show up in casual conversation, but have real health impacts over time. Here's another twist: cheese and cognition. Emerging research is now connecting high-sodium, high-fat diets to vascular dementia and cognitive decline. These findings suggest that choosing the wrong types of cheese could indirectly affect mental health. On the flip side, cheeses like aged Swiss, which contain vitamin K2 and beneficial fats, may actually help maintain cognitive integrity in aging adults. In short, it's not about eliminating cheese. It's about evolving your cheese strategy. Ask yourself, is the cheese I'm eating today helping me live better tomorrow? Is it supporting my gut, reducing my inflammation, and nourishing my bones? Or is it merely filling a craving while quietly accelerating age-related decline? If that sounds like a lot to consider, don't worry, awareness is the first step. Once seniors begin to understand the new relationship their bodies have with food, they're empowered to make wiser, more personalized choices. Cheese can absolutely remain a part of your life, but not without conscious reflection, moderation, and an openness to change. The same habits that served us at the 30th of may betray us at 70. But with the right knowledge, we don't have to give up flavor to preserve health. We just need to be smarter about what we're putting on our plate. When it comes to dietary pitfalls for older adults, cheese is one of the most underestimated threats. Its cultural status as a comfort food, its long-standing presence in Western meals, and its versatile use in snacks and entrees make it a daily staple for many. But as the body ages, what was once benign or even beneficial can become a hidden source of systemic distress. This is especially true for processed, high-fat, and sodium-rich cheeses. Let's begin with the most obvious culprits: processed cheese products. These are often made not from whole milk or fresh curds, but from an industrial slurry of emulsifiers, food starches, artificial colors, sodium phosphate, and saturated fat. These ingredients work synergistically to create flavor and shelf life, but offer little if any nutritional benefit. In fact, many processed cheeses barely qualify as cheese at all by traditional standards. One key ingredient in these products is sodium phosphate, an additive that enhances meltability and extends product life. But in seniors, especially those on blood pressure medications or with compromised kidney function, this compound is dangerous. Sodium phosphate accelerates vascular calcification, increases phosphorus load on the kidneys, and can worsen cardiovascular risk profiles. The National Kidney Foundation has flagged phosphate additives as a hidden threat to older populations who often already have decreased renal filtration rates. Another problem with processed cheese is the saturated fat content. While fat is essential, the kind matters. Saturated fats in high doses can elevate LDL cholesterol, reduce HDL cholesterol, and promote inflammation. But worse still are trans fats, which still occasionally appear in older or international brands under the label partially hydrogenated oils. These fats are recognized by the World Health Organization and FDA as direct contributors to cardiovascular disease. Dr. Walter Willett, former chair of the Department of Nutrition at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, has repeatedly emphasized the link between trans fats and premature mortality. He advocates not just reducing, but eliminating them entirely from the food system. And yet, they persist in certain processed cheese, products particularly spreads, singles, and aerosol-style toppings. Now let's consider blue cheese, often perceived as a gourmet indulgence. Blue cheese is aged with penicillium mold, which produces tyramine and histamine. These biogenic amines can trigger blood pressure surges, arrhythmias, and severe headaches in sensitive individuals, especially those with histamine intolerance or who are taking MAO inhibitors. Older adults are particularly vulnerable to these compounds because the activity of the enzyme diamine oxidase, DAO, which breaks down histamine declines with age. For seniors who unknowingly eat high histamine cheeses like Roquefort or Gorgonzola, symptoms like palpitations, sweating, anxiety, and even fainting may occur. To complicate matters, blue cheese is often made with unpasteurized milk, increasing the risk of Listeria monocytogenes infection. Listeria is a dangerous pathogen for seniors with weakened immunity. While young, healthy individuals may recover from listeriosis with minor symptoms, older adults are at higher risk of sepsis, meningitis, and death. This risk is amplified when cheeses are stored improperly or consumed past their expiration date. What about cream cheese? It's often viewed as benign, mild in flavor, smooth in texture, and seemingly harmless. But its nutrient profile is problematic. Most commercial cream cheese products are high in saturated fat, low in protein, high in added sugar, especially in flavored versions. This combination makes it a classic example of empty, calories-dense in energy, low in nutrition. For seniors dealing with metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, or abdominal obesity, regular consumption of cream cheese only worsens their profile. Furthermore, due to its high moisture content and soft texture, cream cheese is also more susceptible to microbial contamination if left unrefrigerated for even short periods. Seniors with slowed digestion or compromised immunity are less equipped to fend off the consequences of such exposure. From a broader lifestyle perspective, consider the emotional attachment many people have to cheese. Cheese doesn't just fill stomachs, it fills emotional gaps. For seniors who may be isolated, anxious, or struggling with depression, cheese becomes a self-soothing behavior. This can spiral into cheese dependency, particularly with hyperpalatable products that stimulate the dopaminergic reward system in the brain. This is the same neural pathway activated by sugar, nicotine, and even opioids. Seniors may find that cheese provides immediate gratification, but the long-term consequences are sobering. The chronic intake of salt, saturated fat, and inflammatory additives can increase cortisol levels, raising blood pressure, impair insulin signaling, contributing to diabetes, weaken vascular flexibility, elevating stroke risk. A particularly under-discussed issue is the quantitative blindness surrounding cheese. Most people don't measure portions. A sprinkle on salad, a slice on a sandwich, a cube at a party, these quickly accumulate. Without tracking, it's easy for an individual to consume 4 to 5 ounces of cheese in a single day, far exceeding the recommended daily intake of saturated fat and sodium. Add to this the ubiquity of cheese in modern diets. In America, cheese is everywhere: pizza, casseroles, eggs, sandwiches, soups, even desserts. Few foods have been as culturally normalized. This normalization masks its impact. Even celebrities are beginning to wake up to these realities. Oprah Winfrey, for example, has openly discussed her midlife shift toward plant-based and anti-inflammatory foods, limiting high-fat dairy. Her emphasis isn't just weight loss, it's about energy, emotional regulation, and inflammation management. Likewise, Steve Jobs, although not specifically a cheese opponent, practiced extreme dietary discipline in his later years. His journey underscored the modern belief that nutrition is one of the most powerful levers we can pull in aging well or aging poorly. So what should seniors do? The answer is not to eliminate all cheese, but to become discerning. Prioritize fermented cheeses with live cultures over sterile processed types. Choose low sodium, low lactose, and minimally processed options. Use cheese as a complement, not a main course. It also means reading labels with a critical eye. Avoid anything with sodium phosphate, potassium sorbate, or partially hydrogenated oils. Be cautious with flavored or spreadable cheeses. They often contain added sugars or thickeners. Consider portion control tools like pre-cut cubes or single-ounce serving stow maintain dietary balance. Seniors should also tune into biofeedback. How does your body feel an hour after eating cheese? Do you feel bloated, fatigued, mentally foggy? Is the enjoyment worth the after effects? This awareness, combined with nutritional education, empowers seniors to make food decisions based on physiology, not nostalgia. We live in a time of nutritional contradiction. Longer life expectancies paired with rising rates of chronic illness. Cheese, in all its forms, sits at the intersection of this contradiction. It can either be a source of nourishment or a catalyst for decline. In public health circles, there is growing interest in food, as a modifiable risk factor in cheese is increasingly on the radar. It is one of the most commonly consumed animal-based foods, yet among the least scrutinized by seniors. To age well in this modern era, cheese consumption must evolve. It requires rethinking traditions, redefining pleasure, and reclaiming control. As with all dietary matters, the goal isn't restriction, it's intention. And with cheese, intention begins at the grocery shelf, extends through preparation, and ends in how you feel the next morning. Make it count. For many older adults, cheese is more than a food, it's a comfort, a tradition, and often a daily indulgence. But what's commonly overlooked is that cheese influences not just digestion, but three critical pillars of senior health: the gut, the brain, and the bones. A growing body of research and decades of clinical observations show that the compounds in cheese can either heal or harm, depending on how they interact with the aging body. Gut health and cheese, a delicate microbial balance. As people age, their gut microbiome begins to shift. The once diverse population of beneficial bacteria diminishes, leading to weaker immune defenses, increased intestinal permeability, leaky gut, and a higher risk of digestive conditions like IBS and food sensitivities. What seniors eat directly affects this balance, and cheese is no exception. Processed cheeses loaded with emulsifiers, synthetic preservatives, and flavor enhancers disrupt the microbial ecosystem. A 2020 review in Frontiers in Microbiology identified common food additives, including emulsifiers used in processed cheeses, as drivers of gut dysbiosis. This microbial imbalance has been linked to metabolic syndrome, low-grade inflammation, and mood disorders like anxiety and depression. On the flip side, fermented cheeses like feta, aged Swiss, and goat cheese provide beneficial probiotic strains such as lactobacillus and bifidobacterium. These bacteria support the intestinal barrier, produce short-chain fatty acids that reduce inflammation, and even influence neurotransmitter production. Public figures like Gwyneth Paltrow have emphasized the importance of gut health, championing fermented and probiotic-rich foods as a way to combat autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. Though not yet a senior herself, her influence has helped popularize microbiome-conscious eating. Cheese and the brain, neurochemical allies or agitators. The gut-brain acts as a two-way communication system between the gastrointestinal tract and the brainus, a critical link in senior neurological health. What affects the gut can influence cognition, mood, and neuroplasticity. Certain cheeses, depending on their composition, either nourish or disrupt this system. Aged cheeses like blue cheese, brie, and camembert are rich in tyramine and histamine ibiogenic amines that can wreak havoc on seniors with slower metabolic breakdown capabilities. These compounds can cause sudden spikes in blood pressure, migraine-like headaches, anxiety or restlessness, irregular heartbeat. Furthermore, high-sodium cheeses have been shown to compromise the blood-brain barrier, BBB, allowing pro-inflammatory substances to enter the brain. This sets the stage for cognitive decline and increases the risk of vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. A 2016 study in The Lancet Neurology reported that long-term hypertension correlates with damage to white matter in the brain, damage that contributes to memory loss and decreased executive function. In contrast, cheeses like goat cheese and full-fat feta contain omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B12, and CLA, conjugated linoleic acid. These nutrients support brain cell regeneration, reduce oxidative stress, and protect the myelin sheath that allows efficient nerve communication. Consider Tom Brady, who credits much of his sustained focus and performance to an anti-inflammatory diet that includes select dairy products low in sodium and high in healthy fats. His longevity in a high-stakes sport is a case study in how diet affects brain function. Bone health, more than just calcium. Cheese is often praised for its calcium content, but calcium alone is not enough. Bone health depends on several cofactors: vitamin K2, magnesium, vitamin D, and phosphorus. The body needs all of these in balance to maintain strong bones and avoid fractures. Cheeses high in sodium and saturated fat like processed spreads and cream cheese scan actually impair calcium retention. Sodium increases calcium excretion in the urine, while saturated fat may bind to calcium in the gut, making it unavailable for absorption. Swiss cheese, however, is an outlier. It's naturally high in vitamin K2, which helps direct calcium into the bones and away from arteries. This reduces the risk of both osteoporosis and arterial calcification. Clinical studies suggest that seniors, especially postmenopausal women, benefit significantly from K2-rich foods. Goat and sheep milk cheeses like feta also provide bioavailable calcium and phosphorus, along with a type of casein protein that is structurally more digestible for older adults. These cheeses mimic some aspects of human milk, which is why they're often better tolerated. Jane Fonda, a champion of aging with strength, has spoken candidly about her osteoporosis diagnosis and the dietary changes she made to protect her bones. Her pivot to lower sodium, nutrient-dense cheeses aligns with the emerging evidence. The inflammation equation, a common denominator. Inflammation is the root of nearly every chronic disease that afflicts older adults, from arthritis and cardiovascular disease to Alzheimer's and type 2 diabetes. The wrong types of cheese can stoke this internal fire. Processed and fatty cheeses increase systemic inflammation through elevated sodium, promoting endothelial dysfunction, presence of oxidized fats, common in aged and shelf-stable products, deficiency in anti-inflammatory agents like omega-3s or antioxidants, A 2018 study in nutrients confirmed that diets high in low-quality cheese increased C-reactive protein, CRP, a blood marker of inflammation. In contrast, seniors who consumed fermented cheeses like Swiss or feta had lower CRP levels and improved insulin sensitivity. The takeaway is clear: not all cheese is inflammatory. When chosen carefully, it can actually help reduce inflammation and protect against chronic illness. Practical recommendations for seniors. To make smarter cheese choices, seniors should choose fermented probiotic-rich cheeses like feta, goat, and aged Swiss. Limit sodium-dense cheeses, especially processed or aged blue cheeses. Favor goat, sheep milk varieties over cow's milk cheeses. Pair cheese with fiber-rich vegetables and healthy fats to slow digestion and improve nutrient absorption. Practice portion control. Think of cheese as a garnish, not a main course. Final analysis. Cheese's impact on gut, brain, and bone health is multifaceted. It can either undermine or reinforce these systems depending on its source, quality, and how it fits into the broader diet. For seniors, whose biological systems are already in flux, the margin for error is smaller, and the rewards of dietary precision are greater. Ultimately, the goal is not deprivation but discernment. Cheese, in the right form and context, can still be a source of nourishment, comfort, and even joy. But as the science shows, this joy must be earned with awareness, not assumed by tradition. Eat wisely, age powerfully. The idea that dietary choices can redefine health outcomes is no longer theoretical, it's observable, replicable, and often dramatic. Especially among older adults, where physiology is in flux and inflammation is more common, small tweaks in food selection can have outsized effects. These case studies underscore how thoughtful changes in cheese consumption contributed to measurable improvements in health. Case 1. Eleanor, age 72, from cream cheese to clarity. Eleanor had spent over 40 years as a public school teacher, waking early each morning to the familiar comfort of a toasted bagel smothered in cream cheese. As the years passed, her routine remained, but her body began sending different signals. Lab results showed a steady rise in LDL cholesterol and an uptick in fasting glucose. At 72, she was diagnosed with prediabetes. After guidance from her healthcare team, Eleanor made a single strategic change, swapping cream cheese for goat cheese with herbs on whole grain toast. This wasn't a massive overhaul, it was a mindful substitution. Goat cheese provided her with easier to digest, 2 casein proteins, lower lactose, and anti-inflammatory fats. Within 6 months, Eleanor's LDL dropped by 25 points. Her fasting glucose normalized. She reported fewer energy crashes, more regular digestion, and greater overall satiety throughout the morning. A small, consistent change reshaped her metabolic outlook. Case 2. Henry, age 68, a veteran's victory over processed cheese. Henry, a retired Navy engineer, was the epitome of structure and habit. Every afternoon featured a sandwich stacked high with processed American cheese slices, personal comfort food. But after suffering 2 TIAs within a single year, his care team urged immediate dietary modifications. They didn't recommend cutting out cheese entirely, but rather upgrading it. Henry replaced his processed cheese with slices of aged Swiss, a naturally lower sodium and additive-free option. Additionally, he started pairing his meals with fermented vegetables to restore his gut microbiota. 4 months later, Henry's blood pressure had stabilized. His mental sharpness, which had been waning, subtly returned. He noticed that he felt more present, more balanced. For Henry, choosing real cheese over engineered food meant reclaiming vitality. Case 3. Martha, age 80, from indigestion to intestinal relief. Martha, known for her vibrant energy and sharp wit, started having unexpected digestive issues, bloating, discomfort, and irregular bowel movements. Her doctor pinpointed blue cheese salads as a potential culprit. Aged cheeses like blue cheese are rich in histamine and mold, both of which can trigger reactions in aging bodies. Martha switched to feta-brined fermented cheese made from sheep's milk. Not only is feta lower in lactose, but it also delivers beneficial probiotics that nourish the gut. Within a few weeks, her bloating diminished, her digestion became regular, and she felt lighter, both physically and emotionally. This change didn't require eliminating cheese, just choosing a version more aligned with her body's new needs. Case 4. Franklin, age 75, the executive turnaround. Franklin, a retired CEO, lived a life steeped in luxury, and that included food. His favorites? Triple cream brie, camembert, and heavy cream cheese-based spreads. Though active and engaged, Franklin began experiencing cognitive lapses and was alarmed when his doctor flagged elevated CRP levels and borderline hypertension. His physician recommended an anti-inflammatory overhaul. Franklin swapped his soft cheeses for aged Swiss and goat cheese, both rich in B12, K2, and lower in saturated fats. He also began stretching in the mornings and practicing meditation. Within 5 months, not only did his CRP levels drop, but his clarity returned. He resumed mentoring young business leaders and even began painting as a creative outlet. For Franklin, a cheese pivot was the first domino in a cascade of wellness. Case 5. Gloria, age 67, a Mediterranean makeover. Gloria, a retired opera singer, struggled with weight gain and energy slumps after transitioning out of her stage career. Cream cheese bagels and wine-paired cheese platters were part of her daily rhythm. But a Mediterranean diet documentary and a conversation with her physician sparked change. She began eating feta on avocado toast, swapped wine-pairing cheeses for small portions of Swiss, and loaded her meals with greens and legumes. In just 3 months, her LDL cholesterol dropped by 18%, and she lost 2 inches around her waist. Gloria also noted improved breath control during her daily vocal warm-ups. The Mediterranean diet in fiber, healthy fats, and fermented food helped her reset without giving up the joys of cheese. Common threads among the cases. Across these 5 narratives, a few themes emerge. Substitution over elimination. Rather than cutting cheese, each person swapped a harmful option for one better suited to their physiology. Fermented and minimally processed cheeses ruled. Goat cheese, Swiss, and feta consistently proved gentler, more nutritious, and easier to digest. Visible metabolic improvements. These ranged from reduced LDL cholesterol and stabilized blood pressure to enhanced cognitive sharpness. Cognitive and emotional uplift. Many participants reported more clarity, energy, and emotional steadiness after switching cheeses. Celebrity parallels that validate the approach. These personal stories are reflected in broader public trends. Bill Clinton, after heart surgery, drastically reduced his intake of saturated fat, including dairy to improve cardiac function. Jane Fonda, who manages osteoporosis, turned to nutrient-dense, lower-sodium foods and Mediterranean-style cheeses to support bone health. Oprah Winfrey has spoken about using dairy more judiciously, focusing on anti-inflammatory benefits and avoiding energy dips. Tom Brady, while still consuming select dairy, limits cheese to low-sodium, clean options like Swiss that support recovery and performance. Their choices echo what the case studies show. The right cheese can support strength, clarity, and resilience in aging bodies. Final reflection. These stories are not extraordinary. They are representative. Every senior has the power to take a closer look at what's on their plate and make changes that restore energy, reduce risk, and reignite joy. Cheese, far from being the enemy, can be a partner in longevity if chosen with care. What matters isn't deprivation, it's awareness. It's about looking beyond taste and convenience and asking, what is this food doing for my body? With just one shift a new cheese, a better pairing, a mindful portion, seniors can reclaim control over how they age. And that control, exercised daily, becomes the difference between decline and vitality. In a culture obsessed with shortcuts, these stories remind us that true transformation is often powered by the smallest changes repeated with intention. Choose better, age stronger. Let your cheese be part of the solution. So here we are, at the end of a journey that likely began with curiosity, but now, hopefully, ends in clarity and maybe even conviction. If you've made it this far, it means you care not just about what's on your plate, but what kind of future that plate is building for you. And when it comes to cheese, the story is more nuanced than most of us were ever taught. It's not about labeling cheese as a villain. It's about learning to tell the difference between what supports your aging body and what slowly works against it. It's about respecting the intelligence of your biology and the wisdom you've earned over the years. Because make no mistake, your body has changed. Your organs, your bones, your gut, and yes, even your brain are navigating a very different landscape now than they were at 35. That means you can't afford to eat the same way, and you don't have to. What this episode of Senior Health Hub has revealed is both empowering and eye-opening. Cheese isn't just cheese. It's a biochemical message to your body. Processed cheese spreads? They're not food, they're edible chemicals. Blue cheese? A histamine trap that could quietly spike your blood pressure or upset your heart rhythm. Cream cheese? Comforting to the taste, but potentially inflammatory to the gut and brain. And yet, we've also seen how powerful the right cheeses can be. Goat cheese, clean, metabolically friendly, and kind to the aging gut. Swiss cheese, low in sodium, high in vitamin K2, a protector of both heart and bone. Feta, fermented, probiotic, rich, and part of some of the world's longest living cultures. We've walked through science, reviewed celebrity case studies, and heard real stories from people just like you seniors who made tiny changes and saw transformative results: less inflammation, better digestion, sharper memory, lower blood pressure, more energy. Isn't that what we all want in our later years? Not just to live longer, but to live better. Let's be honest, change can be uncomfortable. It's easier to keep eating the foods that make us feel safe, even if they're quietly working against us. It's easier to believe the commercials than to challenge decades of habit. But aging well requires intention. It requires self-compassion, and it requires staying curious. So, the next time you stand in front of the cheese section at your local market, you'll see more than labels and packaging. You'll see choices. You'll see consequences. And most importantly, you'll see opportunity. Opportunity to swap what inflames you for what strengthens you. Replace what clogs your arteries with what nourishes your bones. Shift from eating out of habit to eating with awareness. Because you're not just buying cheese, you're investing in your vitality. And that's what Senior Health Hub is all about. This isn't just a YouTube channel, it's a movement, a space for empowered aging, a place where information becomes transformation. Before we go, ask yourself, what cheese is in my fridge right now? Does it align with the kind of life I want to live at 70, 80, 90? Am I eating out of comfort or out of care? No one is saying you can't enjoy the foods you love, but loving yourself means asking better questions. So here's your final challenge. Try swapping just one cheese this week. Just one. Notice how your body responds. Share your story in the comments. Because you're not alone on this journey. This community is filled with people who, like you, are choosing to age with strength, dignity, and delight. And we'll be right here with you, every step of the way. If you found value in this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this episode with someone you love. Because sometimes, the smallest shifts lead to the biggest transformations. This is Senior Health Hubware. Your next chapter is written by choice, not by chance. Stay strong, stay smart, and stay vibrant. We'll see you in the next video.